your community of practice, but make a lot of sense to another organization or another area. Sometimes badges just for showing up are important because somebody might have had to travel for 2 hours to get somewhere, or maybe that they've had really a hardship in order to just show up. Which is like, yeah, if you have to walk down the street to get somewhere, probably not the same. But what's important here is that everybody starts to realize that all of the badges that are being developed by these different issuers probably have some deep meaning to the people who are using them because they're trying to indicate to the badge issuing some of the values that they recognize and what to reward.
That's the part I love the most. You know, that to make, if you're an institution that's thinking about a badge system, one of the things to really think about is what counts to us. What is it in our community that counts? And the collective evaluation as opposed to something that's just inherited. And you're trying to fit your values, however complex those might be, into an inherited system that happens to be the root.
It's all about telling the story about badges as well, isn't it? Because, I mean, it's the difference between doing a PhD and education by publication. When you do a PhD by publication, you have to string together the publications you've already published and tell kind of the meta-narrative and the story behind that. So it's kind of doing that because badges by themselves, give them to somebody or display them without some kind of story around them or some kind of context, nothing make a whole lot of sense.
I think that's what you're saying too, is recognizing that badges actually are opening a conversation between the people that you're issuing the badge to. So they take it through like feedback, that actually feeds back into your the issuing organization so that people can say, oh, well, people are finding value here, or they're making recommendations for badges that don't exist, so maybe we should start to address this issue.
And in a way, that conversation is open back to the issuer because you can click and see the criteria and so on. I could just also say that use the word recognition. I think that's an important word. It's different from reward. But I think there are several different labels that fit on badges. Some badges are awards, some badges are recognition, and some are certification. And so I think we need to just like we use the word certificate to mean a lot of things for we just need to understand that the label badge means a series of things.
One thing I think is so exciting about badges is hopefully, I hope, in my childhood lifetime, that we put pressure on kids to feel like their life is over and they're done pulling on one end.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so unfair what we're doing to this generation. They're growing up so stressed out.
Yeah.
They don't do the core features. They're not getting stressed to college. I hear it every day. So I'm curious if you're speaking to teachers in colleges about them starting to issue badges to you first see a day when they'll look at the child's transcript and then look at the grades and averages and they'll maybe they'll look at the grades and averages in combination with the fact that the child has all
what a dream. That's such a cool dream. Reimagination of greatness.
And what happens soon.
What I've done is, it might happen in the first education that when I was a vice provost, I took on some of the people responsible for the infamous iPod experiment way back in 2003 when the iPod had no education. Apple came to us and said, is there some technology you'd like to use in the classroom? And everyone else was using laptops. We said, give us the iPod and let's make it a learning experiment and have students try to figure out learning usage for it. And we did it a little bit more competitive. We gave 3 iPods to the first-year students, and then we knew the second, third, and fourth-year students would be furious. We said, oh, what a mistake. How about you come up with learning uses and convince the professor to put it on the syllabus, and then you and the prof and all the students will get free iPods. Well, within 1 semester, we gave away more iPods to students who had come up with uses, and it convinced the professor to change a syllabus, then we get free to the first year. We were on the cover of Newsweek, we were on the cover of Party Station, we were on NBC News, when we were selling out education, we were just trading away for the iPods when we were successful, and actually podcasting, video casting, all kinds of things come up by students working together, nothing, silence. And in fact, the executive from Apple recently wrote to me and said what we really got was not millions and millions and millions of dollars of free R&D from those students, what we got was a knowledge that it's really hard to convince educators and parents, parents, that a reform is going to be good. They're so worried about it that so they said for 10 years we released Apple products only about learning, never about education. You know, the education piece part. But everyone's worried about the job market now. And there's not a company, I swear there's not a company out there that isn't saying transcripts and grade inflation and resumes and letters of recommendation aren't working, and worse, this system of education we have is destroying our workforce. I now talk to a lot of management trainers, and the standard grant, it would take 2 years to take the best student out of the mindset of being the best student and think about themselves as an adult who knows they have failings, they have weaknesses, they have to go to someplace else to find help, and in other words, to be a collaborative worker. They feel like they almost have like a breaking of horse in the old days of grocery. You have to like get people out of habit, unlearning to get them. And I think there may be pressures from the workplace back to school. Enough work recruiters tell college recruiters this is not working. I think something will change. I think it will change. It's a crisis. Also, in some ways, the push that's being put on teachers right now is so horrible. That might be a good thing. You know, in other words, teachers, instead of fighting this, might realize this is, for them, a concrete way of getting out of this horrible trap they're being put in. The most recent one in New York State, the D-language. The test scores are keeping possible variation in the reliability of the scores and making them public. It's appalling. And appalling is good for anybody. You know, it really is good. You know, when you feel like you're at the bottom, you're much more willing to invent and experiment and try something.
It also takes some pressure off see everything corporations want them to see and allow corporations to sort of have training. Like a badge from this place might work for many tiny markets on corporations, so it could release some pressure.
Also to flip it and be more optimistic. There's a pretty large group of people assembling here for an idea that's an experiment, right? And we're all tweeting out, and we're kind of, you know, that many people are inspired by an experiment. Suggests that we might really be at one of those change moments, really important change moments, and that in fact we are change agents in that way.
And that change is easy to imagine. So higher ed first starts giving both grades and badges. You say, in my instructional design course, we have a task analysis badge, we have a needs assessment badge, we have this. Come to Penn State, you'll get both a grade and badge. Then, after a while, you start realizing that, hey, courses and semesters and classes, and I mean, there's all this, we don't need that anymore. But the transition is easily imaginable. We're talking about it already.
Yeah, I know. I'm sure I would have learned a lot in that other session, but I must admit I'm not Are there comments or questions, or do people want to? Yeah.
One of the big tensions is that we haven't really solved yet with social media and the web is identity and shifting identity, moving identities, changing identities. The idea that you can lose or delete, all of those things. And I'm just wondering what's been learned so far about that, if anybody has any.
It's a big question of the web right now, isn't that one of the major questions?
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly one of Mozilla's big interests is to help people define that or help people own that. And sort of, again, put the control in the user and sort of open that up for the user. So, I don't know, Matt, you might be able to speak to a little bit better than I can, but basically, Mozilla, outside of our group, is working on something called Browser ID, and actually now
Phishing.
as of today, I think.
Traffic computing.
But again, really kind of trying to sort of break down the kind of more proprietary walls, like things like Facebook or something, where a lot of your identity is tied up into that, and they're certainly making it easier. You go to a site and it says, oh, why don't you log in by Facebook? And that's so easy, but then you're just kind of like perpetuating the control. And so there, I guess, I can't speak to all the specifics around it, just to say that there's a lot of work within Mozilla and beyond around sort of helping define that, and that's a core part of the Open Badge infrastructure is, again, because badges, if we're successful, can be very high-value identity information, that we're building it in a way to ensure that the learner or the user owns that collection, has complete control over that collection, and can decide how to share that out.
Kind of already discussed, I came in a little bit late. Can you all hear me okay?
Yeah.
But how do we get people to buy in to this model? Because I think students are so entrenched in this model
Well,
of
that's easy.
training and standardized testing. How do we shift that paradigm to something that's sort of more maybe skill based?
I'm going to steal this Penn State, the gentleman from Penn State, what was his name again?
Kyle?
Kyle's idea. Maybe the first step is you give both. You know, in other words, don't make a choice that's going to cause anxiety that will cause a resistance before you've even been able to try something. So in any situation of anxiety, you know, duplicate rather than make it an either or. Make it a flexible system.
And I think you can also help by having them earn badges that are meaningful while they're younger, before they're
Get the ecosystem early.
badges with real assessments while they're younger, and then they know, okay, well, badges mean something.
We offered, we didn't call them badges, but essentially badges, and the students came to us.
I think the students are going to happen. It's going to happen faster for students than it will for
Get
faculty.
them to go.
Someone back here had their hand up. I mean,
I wanted to put the identity thing that came out. My background is in media psychology and interested in identity, and it's very, I've been listening to all these conversations over the last few days, and there's very little talk of identity. And the reality is that in the digital world, identity formation, what used to be in just face-to-face conversations, is going online. And it's happening in a digital space. And before, and that relationship with badges is exactly what that is. It's that relationship between the institution, the we, and the I. And it's a relationship that goes back and forth. When we talk about motivations, like intrinsic and extrinsic, like you're saying, it's not either or. There's a mutual thing going on here. And identity is a huge thing. We want to show who we are to each other. We want to show who we want to manage it, which is great that we can do that in a badge system. We want to manage it, but we also want to be able to progress and show what that is. Across the different things, the badge system allows for one way to showcase that. And I think it's really, personally, I think it's very much a part of the research that should be done, is that role of identity in the badge and that is opening up. I would love to see that.
and I really don't know that badge is simply another way to perpetuate privilege classes in real life, whatever that is.
Oh, yeah.
You don't need badges.
So I'll push back on your comment a little bit by building on this. I actually disagree pretty strongly about mapping directly of any sort of thing that you can measure with something that you give a badge to, because badges lend themselves well to practices and things that are highly contextual, and measurement and assessment and testing in particular doesn't. So I actually think there's a pretty big risk of equating them, and in fact I think I'm going to push and say that
Yeah, although when Kyle was talking about it, he was saying, like, you know, they're still grades, but then there's badges for skills, which are slightly different, right? Like, it's surfacing out different types of recognition and different types of things, sort of, but they still have the grades because that's what they feel kind of comfortable with, I guess. But then there's the badges layered on top that give more granular recognition.
I guess I'm a little worried about, especially with stuff that we really do measure, really very conventional skills that are very decontextualized and that are easily measured but don't really mean that much. If we get those mixed up with badges, I think we really start running and, you know, we can, I guess in the perfect world, you should see an echo of some sort, that people are getting lots of badges who are doing newer practices and newer skills should be picking up some of this stuff that is echoed on these other very conventional measures of
Say
things.
what those things, just to help us understand what they
Well,
would be measured as.
traditional literacies, numeracies, content skills, really, truly standardized, like achievement tests and stuff. That stuff really needs to be sort of pushed away and pushed out from and separated from very contextualized practices that mean something in context. I mean, that's why we're excited about them, because they are contextual, because they do mean something in particular contexts.
The problem is, I'm not sure achievement tests, some achievement tests do this better than others, of course, but not all achievement tests really measure achievement. So that's an issue as well.
I think we kind of approached that. I'm a stage 2 competitor. We have a project called STEM Scouts, and we thought it is appropriate to give badges for things like numeracy. So, like, you know, the basic, like, why not have a fractions badge separate from decimal badge that's separate from a something else badge. So those are all on one level. That's our lowest level of badge knowledge. So we think in traditional instruction, we find different cognitive kinds of challenges. We have levels for all of them. Then we go from that to, project patches where they apply what they've learned, and then maker methods where they actually create, work with teams, and do their own things. And then, so we think that badges are appropriate, but separate them and help people, help even young kids understand the difference between those two.
I guess it's my point is, let's be clear, we're talking about different forms of knowledge, and some is more contextualized and some is less contextualized.
Let's come back to this guy's point. He's arguing that uncontextualized knowledge isn't worth very much to his domain. I'm just wondering which domain uncontextualized knowledge is.
Just frame it right.
Whether we like it or not, I mean, we
Well,
simply
it's
stuck
not whether
with
we like it or not, because it's a community, it's a society, we get to choose what we want to do. That's the whole point.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm interested in hearing from those of you who have done your own brand of implementation. What are the sessions been?
Oh, I can
Certainly
imagine.
from students, but also from your colleagues, from administration. How are you feeding what you're doing into your institution's LMS? How are the mechanics of all of this?
Bridge work.
On the part of
Can you repeat that?
Could you say that a little louder? I'm interested in knowing from you folks who have already completed some form of implementation, what the reception to your efforts has been on the part of your students, on the part of your colleagues, your administration. Are your LMS systems,
LMS.
Learning management.
Sufficient to accept the kind of data that you're generating and to enable all of this to get rolled up?
Well, I'm thinking about my case. My dean is used to putting up whenever the New York Times writes about how I'm destroying education again. But our systems are totally incompatible with the kind of teaching I'm doing. So I have to go through translation every year of the kind of nuanced work I'm doing in my classes and I'm able to put together on those letters I described earlier versus A, B, C, D grading at the end of the class. But I'm lucky because I'm kind of the university's decided I should be the stumper, and so now I actually I work with apprentices who teach this method too, or not this method, who teach about new kinds of learning methods too. But I would love to hear from other people. Yeah, David.
Scott, just one short or small story. It's a very small context. We've been teaching a course in Second Life for several years on marrying game design and learning theory. And 2 years ago, we built a different kind of learning management system that starts from digital activity. And what we're finding is that students get done with half the course in a quarter of the time.
Wow.
Because they ramp themselves up very fast because of the small recognition that let them just decide how far, how fast. So we're just seeing a lot more work. It drives us to create new digital experiences a lot faster than, in the old days you'd have your syllabus, it would be kind of set for the semester, with a yawn, it would kind of come out, roll out once a week as a meeting and so forth. That pace is really different. And the students love it because they are, I think I've had one student out of 50 who's uncomfortable with nonlinear than otherwise.
One student.
So for those people, we have to come back in. Give them, I spend more time on emails, I give them back the linear. So you're on big training here. But for everyone else, they find their own way.
There are schools that have a hard time with this competition that are looking to build such as plugins or those core implementation software to both make it easier for teachers and for learners as well as for students to go back into issuers.
Well, as our session chair, I'm sorry to say we're out of time now, but I'd like to thank our distinguished panelists.
Yeah.
Just an evil 4G, but I beat it up all the time, and I'm demonstrating around the world. Kids can't afford stabilization, so I teach video editing and engaging to empower, these kids. And even in you can't take a $300 camera in the barrio or downtown Oakland without it getting ripped off. Well, wood clamp, I can beat you over the head with it. What use is it? If there's no intrinsic value for me to take this. But for a stabilization tool and a cheap $5 Fender guitar strap.
And a dollar bill.
And a dollar bill.
Your battery and everything.
And it's just a DIY, do it yourself. Well, you say, you can use duct tape.
I love it.
You don't need protection. It works. Cool. So, I'll post it. I mean, I could stream it live if I had the 4G turned on, but it would eat my battery up. I mean, it's not there quite. If I had a generator or something around me, or a power cord to run around. But what do you do?
I help organizations think about the future. So I work in technology and for a group called Tech Horizons for the Institute for the Future. And
I know someone who works there. DeWall. He's out of San Diego. Is it wireless? That might be wireless future.
No, I think that might be a different group. So there's about 40 of us. We have a health program, a tech program. We're based in Palo Alto, and we work with organizations, with the foundations, governments. We do a lot of stuff around games. We do a lot of stuff around mobility. We're doing a big project right now. Our research is the future of the internet right now. What's the internet going to look like in 10 years?
So can you give me 10 quick things? I like adjectives, words, but get right to the differential or the saying, what are the 10 things we need? I think it's teachers and parents more than the kids.
Visibility would be number one. A well-realized space and architecture would be number two. Real-time and asynchronous feedback would be 3, 4, and 5. And
what about politics? How do you work with the politics and the policy?
More mapping. Mapping and more what I call semantic zooming. So I think somebody mentioned being able to drill down from when you say late for
the framing has to be correct on which frame it is.
Right. Well, or just being able to take an adjective and unpack that and drill down and say, okay, well here's the 1, 2, 3, 4, 7 things you can do that will help do that. And then you can go down into that, and then you have the instructable screen. Right?
I like that.
That might only be 7. But
still, I like it, but I want it. It's like a quality of service, like on a network, but with links on it. So you could vary that a little bit.
And the reason I said that around politics was because somebody makes a statement in a speech. 26%. Okay, let's open that up. Where did you get your data? Who collected the data? How? Right? Relevant. That's right. Exactly right. So even with the badges, being able to open it up, unpack that. Okay, down to what were the answers you gave? Where did you do that?
So you want the direct evidence and the correlation, so you can say, did you come up with that, or did you?
It's not so much the direct evidence as it is the traceability.
There's an evidence link.
There's an evidence link.
So you could trace conceivably any created video, writing, blogging.
I mean, it's got a trade-off, but that makes a lot of sense. You can go lots of ways.
Do you have a card, Gabriel?
I do.
Gabriel, I'm working on Minorities to Teach, in that I believe to engage and empower youth, students and teachers and parents, that you have to engage them more with gaming, play, and the digital tool sets, the digital literacy with the badging. It's the keys to your cloud. So they learn outside the classroom more. The evidence is based, the kids who go to the library, to get them started early for lifelong learning. I think people talk about those seeds like planting a forest. We're not doing that. I see it in other countries, but I don't see it here.
Where do you do your work?
So right now I'm a social entrepreneur working out of Mesa, Arizona, but I work in a very rough environment because we're anti-immigration. We think Hispanics all should go home, and there's laws currently where if you're Hispanic, the teacher has to tell the police. That's gone that far.
Right.
So getting off that, the teacher becomes the police. I don't like that idea. I really despise the enforcement of it. Just criminalizes students for being stupid. My main niche is literacy for the 21st century, STEM for women. So getting women in STEM early. Because Intel is coming to me and saying, hey, we got 90% men. The women, the good women we have, we'll pay them double.
I just did, we just finished a project looking at STEM skills 20 years ago for the community colleges in California. So something that is quite a bit on my mind, and I'm looking at that. I'm sort of in a conversation too. I'm from Michigan, and that's a big issue in Michigan. Sort of transition in the economy.
But how do you bridge the women? See, there's a bias. There's a bias against women, even in college. I mean, the professors don't want women. You don't know different too. You don't know that there's so many lefties in the world that the writing skills are the soft skills.
Yeah. I'm parched for great solutions and ideas myself.
So you see that as a tipping point maybe in the future if all of our jobs are going to be digital or internet-based.
Well, you know, it's funny to use the example of the Pakistani guy in that conversation about this badge can be got. It's interesting. There's a break point. I think the kinds of jobs that, you know, a lot of us are talking about in the university system are qualitatively different from the kind of social production that's not doing worldwide and global, much more global economy where you're talking about task-based projects, task-based jobs, where you're in a marketplace like ODAC, and you have to move between different communities and different skill sets like that every day, instead of being part of one job with 40 people you work with or 200 people you work with.
I will send you a copy, and
I was wondering if you were planning to post it.
I will. Yes, I talk to you once in a while. My name is Ben Kornak with MCT.
Oh, yes.
Engaged to Empower Minority Kids, 21st Literacy.
Well, I was so happy. I mean, this was kind of the perfect DML moment where you've got a disaster and then it's just incredibly interesting conversation. So I was
and there's live video.
and delighted that you were video.
They were even complimenting me, like,
I was so impressed. You were like, you're such a pro. It's great. So I would love to have a link to put it up.
I'll post it tonight. You know, I have to get you a speedy internet connection. It's probably going to be about 500 megs.
I can't even imagine, but it's wonderful. Thank you
You're
so
welcome.
much. And I'll blog about this, what this felt like to have a situation that's stunk, and then turning into a great situation.
I think we need more of these conversations. That's what the sessions should be.
I learned so much. I mean, here I quote this person who's written this great comment on a blog, and he's sitting in the audience.
Right.
In the audience, he's part of our group.
Right. I got to get in this. So I get at least.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yep. Well said.
No, the only question I had for you, though, is what I really worry about, is the badges, the rich people, meaning the higher-end colleges, taking the badges, and then the people in the lowest common denominator schools not getting those opportunities. Meaning the whole system is for everyone to have it.
Yeah, it's interesting because I not only teach at Duke, I tutor to a lot of kids that are high school dropouts, and they're the ones I've met who are most passionate about this because they feel they have real skills and no way to certify those skills.
The problem is, I see ASU and some other money hungry person, the publishing company.
Oh, I know it. Oh, I
See what I'm saying is, they'll grab this and commercialize it.
Of course they will. The same way they have said. And that's why I'm really glad Mozilla, at least is
So you think Mozilla is pretty safe as far as not being bought?
So far, I think they're pretty safe. Even though they have to partner with Google to work on the internet, I think they're pretty darn on it. So they're pretty great.
How about the last question is, Apple or Google helping Mozilla? Is there any possible links because they have the biggest market share as far as...
Google and Mozilla has a deal with Google because they have to use the search engine. So that's one of the search engines they use. So that is there. But I think they're
I think that's cross-platforming where...
Exactly. I don't know what Mozilla does with that. I have no idea.
I think you're going to have to get a bigger facility that this is getting so big.
I know.
Somebody said Moscone is nearby for next year.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That's really fabulous. Thank you.
That was great. I made my day. But you see where I'm coming from, where I'm worried about media. I know I get harassed and hacked on a daily basis from these guys. Your intellectual property guys follow me around. Hey, can we talk? Can we get some feedback from you? And I'm like, I know who you are. I know your shoes, and those shoes, I don't even make that much money in a month, what those shoes cost. But they're freaking out. Because their whole publishing business, or their whole distribution model of Pepsi is going away.
And I mean, and back to the STEM skill thing too, what Boeing, Intel, all of them, they're looking at, they just need labor, right?
Right.
And particular kinds of labor.
Yeah, I worry about the discussions that could lead to separation of labor force. I understand the correlation between some sort of necessity or accomplishment and your ability to do it your job. This is highly problematic and we're just preparing cause.
Right. No, I guess get back to critical thinking though. I forget the famous philosopher who says the kids have to absorb it.
Yeah. And then spit it back out.
And then,
right. I mean, it's somebody who went through, multiple life science degrees, and then ended up in a very different phase. I mean, it's certainly a valuable skill, in a lot, and it doesn't, I personally don't necessarily feel that that's what ends up, because I think by the time you get to master's PhD, you're probably pretty far away from being turned into or another.
No, I guess what I was saying is badges. When people start appropriating expensive badges, they just put your leverage
I just hope it keeps on the, how certain things are really good for a certain time, like MyFish is a good thing, or certain companies are really good, and even like Google, and all of a sudden now they're changing their privacy policy, that badges don't become the 666 or something like where, hey, do you have your license badge today?
Well, that's that question thing with identity, right? Because many people have multiple, identities across different contracts. Managing that becomes very legal and very advanced.
The only other question I have for you is, unless the CCC guy, the attorney guy, he's got the idea is that these kids are going to get smarter than the teachers, and they're going to come up, who owns their data? Meaning these kids, once you start giving them these tool sets and letting them design...
They already have the tool sets, they already have the access.
At the Institute, we call that the kidularity.
You do?
We have a term for it. It's called the kidularity. It's when enabled by technology, kids become essentially more capable, smarter than adults.
But it's a threat, meaning this is a future thing in the future.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard of that?
You've heard of the singularity, right? Where people are, and part of it is to mock, we sort of mock the singularity idea a little bit because it's just sort of boring as a but
so that's what I'm running into with I implement mobile learning in local high schools, traditional mobile programs, and the teachers, you heard it before, the teachers are there. Gives them a mobile device, even for distributed data gathering in the field, or
say, you're wrong. And I just looked it up, and I have 16 sources that I can cite to say that you're wrong, and with teachers, teachers more worried about authority and maintaining social order and all these things, right?
But the only thing, my main denominator is getting to the teachers who teach the teachers. Unless you get a cultural...
Yeah.
You agree.
And they keep it.
In the future, if you don't change the process,
Right.
you just throw Band-Aids and money and let the media companies...
I like that point a lot, except for if good teachers really can't be trained.
I think it's more money for teachers, and I'm saying 2X to 3X for STEM teachers. I'm saying get the quality ones, what finance is getting, and I get their heart. I get quality teachers with heart who have the passion to put the time and energy to embed that engagement.
I like, there's lots of programs like that. Like Stanford at the D School, they have this D School, which is like
They do.
third place. It's a design school.
Right.
But what they do is they run graduate students from other programs through it and do
like a peer.
It's like design thinking, but it's for
Pixar does something similar.
yeah. So it's for, education students, journalism students, engineers, all of these sort of biology students go through it if they want to, and that exposes them to all those different kinds of tools and practices and approaches and techniques that do have the impact of, I think, training the people who do the training.
Yeah, because Malcolm Gladwell wrote that article for the New Yorker maybe a year ago, arguing that really the MNT program does not, or the MN program does not produce necessarily good teachers at all.
I've seen students tutor and mentor better than the teachers. And when I went to ASU,
What makes a good teacher?
my math calculus teacher was a teacher because he couldn't speak language, so he had to interpret for him. The TA had to teach the class because the staff teacher didn't speak English. So,
it's really useful when you sort of get the responsibilities too. It belongs to everyone. I do with my students when I teach. I do, and I have them all grade each other, but we also make it all visible. And we go through several rounds where people's names are visible at some point, and then they're invisible. Also to look at the effect of what knowing who's giving you what grades has on the grades themselves, or having that visibility, right? The reporting bias that goes along with that.
Yeah, it's not easy. That's a tricky little...
It's fun.
The biases get tough, though. You don't get the cliquey little groups maybe would beat each other up,
Somebody give each other...
Oh, that never happens in high school. That never happens. That's what's going to happen in bad games. You start getting some of the peer review type.
Right. There's lots of opportunities to game the system. And, so when I always put in code, I reserve the opportunity to adjust the weight. It creates an interesting sort of teaching.
So did you find a radical disparity between the Vail graders and the project?
Well, we did iterations of it for different so I sort of controlled it because I wanted them to see what the difference in visibility made, right? In reporting for. So both in terms of reputation, like, wow, you gave me a bad score and you gave me a really good one, and that sort of folks what I did versus just not knowing who gave me what, and just doing it by number.
How about, have you ever worked on presentation skills with the kids like in the net school? You have to give a 20-page paper in your senior year,
right?
And get up and give a presentation, and meaning be local and have the presence. I don't see college kids even prepared remotely for this.
No, but you go through it, you fail, you learn, you do it again.
I just say these soft skills are going to be a much bigger thing. That multi-million-dollar deals on an email or on a top conversation where you thought you meant 10x or 20x.
I see that. I see it all the time. And, it's such a... and socially we're all pretty resilient, and we're good, and we work with each other generally. I'm in the nonprofit space, so in some ways it's like a little bit... What you're getting over. A little bit.
What do you think of the impact investing, B Corporation, L3Cs, that type of stuff? Good?
Yeah. We're, I mean, we've been sort of looking at that ourselves for our institute. What might it mean to move that kind of model? We've been sort of 501.
Are you familiar with that?
The B is kind of a mix between a restriction corporation and a 501c3, right?
Well, it's sort of, it's more of a corporation model. It says that you have to
Socially be responsible.
have to make profit, except that what that profit is not necessarily money. So it can be other things. It can be environmental impact, positive environmental impact. It can be social impact.
Education.
It's a tax break commensurate with the 501c3 tax break, or
Basically, foundations can give you money, meaning they have to give away so much amount of money of their money, 5 or 10% every year. So before, you couldn't do that. You had to be a 501c3 with a bunch of paperwork. Now,
you do a DML competition or something like that.
an L3C or a B corporation, you're saying you're socially responsible. Now, they're still working out the ecosystem on this, but I'm telling you, this impact investing, that a lot of countries around the world don't invest in weapons. Like Finland has one of the largest hedge funds with oil. They don't invest in liquor, or it has to be education, some kind of social good, green technology, that between the equity funds, stock guys, the billionaires, that they just want their money to sit somewhere where they're making maybe 7 to 10%. They don't need to make outrageous amounts anymore. So if I can bank $20 million, I have a little bit more room to not worry about raising money and research.
So that's the B, and then what was the other?
They're both. I'm stereotyping them all three of them.
What was the other?
The only one I know is the B.
Impact investing, B corporation, L3C.
Do you guys have cards?
I don't, but
I've got your name tag.
you got my name tag. I'll be sending you some videos.
Somewhere. I don't know if there's a list of everybody that's good.
There should be. The only bitch I have is there should be a kiosk set up where you give 10 seconds what you're standing for and what you're doing, and then cross-link that.
We can do it tomorrow. I mean, clearly there's extra space.
I'd have to come over the camera and I'd run it, I need a hard drive because I'm going to need a hard drive for the whole day.
Yeah.
And we're looking at...
One of the earlier sessions had a kiosk set up. I forget what it's for recording. But yeah.
And then I would have brought a couple of high school kids, okay, or a couple of college interns and said, okay, you just man this, boilerplate questions, and then... But I got to get going. My voice is running low here, Doug.
Pleasure to meet you.
Hey, Richard, do you have a card or anything?
No, but...
I'll get... Let me see your card. I'm getting a glare on it. What is it? I can just tell me the email.
Richard@mobileed.org.
And it's MOBILE...
ED.
2 E's. Yeah, 2 E's.org. I'm on Twitter. I have too much demand right now because what I'm getting is Steve Pearson and all these publishing companies want to come into like an AFT model in the cloud. And because they're losing, they can't get the top $100 for an eligible book. So they're losing their ecosystem and redefining their business.
Yeah.
Well, that's a gold mine for you.
Yeah. They're in mobile. They're deeply in mobile. They're a partner with Nokia for a while, but they're kind of slowing down. They're part of the Mobile Learning Institute for a while.
Do you want to know the biggest person in mobile ed right now in New York City?
Who's that?
You know who it is?
Maybe the biggest group?
No, the biggest mobile education company in New York City, or New York State.
Public school?
No. Rupert Murdoch. No surprise. $300 million company.
Oh, that makes sense, actually.
So the media is investing big in a lot of this stuff. They want to control that content. It's going to be real.
I'm going to go grab a cup of coffee.
I hear you. Great conversation. I owe you a beer one of these days, both of you.
Take care.
Have fun.
You too.
Go away for 4 hours.
And water.
Water's what we need.